The greatest lie I tell myself is, I don't need to write this down. Or so the story goes. If God says right, you're right. So I want to look at Habakkuk chapter 2 and verses 2 through 4. And this passage is going to contain some phrases you've heard possibly many times. But let's get them in context and perspective. So chapter 2, verses 2 through 4 says, "And the Lord answered me and said, Write the vision and make it plain upon tables, that he may run that readeth it. For the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak and not lie. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come. It will not tarry. Behold, his soul, which is lifted up, is not upright in him, but the just shall live by his faith." And you've heard some of these things before. And I want to just keep us rolling on time today. So it says in the beginning here, "And the Lord answered me." And this phrase, "and the Lord answered me," is Habakkuk, as we've been going through it, there's a dialogue that's going back and forth between God and Habakkuk about the times that they live in and how evil the times are and God's solution and is God paying attention and all of these things that are going on. And so it says, "And the Lord answered me," and when it says the Lord answered me here, it says, "And the Lord testified." Okay? "And the Lord testified." And the Lord spoke on the matter and with some authority and some experience. The Lord testified. And who did he testify to? He said, he testified to me. He answered me. He didn't answer Courtney, he answered me. He didn't answer Pat, he answered me. Why? Because I was the one asking the question. The Lord said, "Okay, now, write this down." That's what I started with. When God says write it down, guess what? Write it down. It says, "And the Lord answered me and said, Write the vision." What vision? Well, the word vision here can be like a dream or a vision or a revelation. You need a revelation? Ask. God can answer you, testify to you, and give you a revelation. And when he does, what he said is, write this down. And the word write this down is talking about engrave this deeply. Okay? Engrave this deeply. What I'm about to tell you. And he says, and make it plain. Make it plain upon the tables. And the idea here is engraving, a deep engraving on a polished stone. So you've got a smooth, reflective, clear, it's not murky, covered in dirt, it's polished, it's smooth, it's clean, and you're going to write it deep on there. Why? So it's plain, so it's clear, so it can be seen. Write this down, make it plain upon the tables, that he may run that readeth it. So everything he said to him at this point is, I'm getting ready to testify to you. I'm getting ready to tell you something. I want you to write it down, engrave it deep on something clear and plain and polished. Deep, did I mention that again? That's what he said, make it deep. That the person that reads it can run. So he may run, and that's with haste, right? Quickly. You know, there's something about, if you want to get something done quickly, you need to know what you're doing, right? I mean, I can do certain things. Like, if I need to build something, I can build it, but I am not fast. Because I have to think about, well, how do I cut that again? What's my measurement here? And you get somebody like Bob, he can do that quickly. Why? Because he knows what he's doing. I have my areas where I know what I'm doing, I spent years writing software. I can sit down at the computer and I can write software pretty quickly because I know what I'm doing. I know I can do that building process. And I don't want to assume anything incorrectly, but I'll bet Bob can't sit down and write software very fast. Right? If you make it plain and you understand what you're doing, you can do it. So, look, engrave this, write it down. It's a revelation that I'm giving you. I'm testifying to this. I want you to make it plain so that the person that comes along can run, they can move quickly, they can move surely, they can move forward, they can do what they need to do when they read it. Okay? Then when they read it. And this idea of read here, they may run that readeth it, is we could put the understands it. When they understand it, they can move quickly, they can move surely, they know what they're doing when they understand it. They have to understand. They got to get it. For the vision is yet for an appointed time. Notice there's an appointed time. You ever had an appointment versus, hey, stop by sometime? There's a difference in that. You know, you go, hey, why don't you come by sometime and we'll go get lunch? When's that going to happen? Thank you. Never. It's never going to happen. Never going to happen. If it looks like it might happen, it'll be a bad day for you and it won't work that day. But if you say, hey, you know what, Tuesday at noon, I'm going to come by and then we're going to go to lunch, guess what's going to happen? Going to lunch Tuesday at noon. Okay? For this vision, this revelation is yet for an appointed time. You know what? I've been saying this, there's the time that this was written for, or, during, and then it sure seems like now is the time. It seems like there's a parallel with our today. So he tells them, write the vision, for it's yet for an appointed time, and that might be today. Just throwing that out there. There's an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak and not lie. At the end, this is the idea of cut off. I want you to think about this for a minute. The Bible talks about the end times. And what does it say? It says, well, even the very elect would be deceived if the days were not shortened. The idea of cut off. I think this is written in part for this time. It's for an appointed time. And at the end, when it's cut off, when it's shortened, it shall speak and not lie. It shall speak what you've engraved. And this is the idea of, again, digging a little deeper. It shall speak and not lie. Not lie as in not deceive. Boy, we live in a time of deceit. We can't even call it what it is. You can't say that's a lie. We say, well, your facts just are different than mine. Your reality is not in sync with my reality. Right? That's just spin. You know what spin is? Lying. We have to put a spin on that. We have to lie about it so people don't really understand what we're saying. That's called deception. Right? I'll pick on Courtney. You take your car to the shop. And they say, well, there's the muffler bearings are a little out of round. And so, right? So we're going to have to put a new transmuter in there and fix it right up. Yeah. You don't think that's the case? Let me just tell you, with all these electric vehicles running around, there's nobody knows how those work. Okay? You can't even program your VCR. What makes you think you can drive an electric car, okay? I hit the start button, but I don't hear nothing. I don't think it's working quite right, yeah? So it shall speak and not deceive. And then I want you to get this. I think it's important. It says, though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come. It will not tarry. And I want to take you through that. It says, though it tarry, which is the idea of delay, be delayed, or to question. You ever have questions for God? Well, Habakkuk did. God's testifying right now. Write this down, son. Make it plain so somebody can understand what's going on. Engrave it deep so they can understand at the right time when it's cut off. It's not going to be deception. Even though you have questions, even though it might be delayed a little bit, wait for it. Guess what? This word wait here means carve. Carve it a little deeper. Why? Making it plain, making it sure, knowing what we're doing, getting it right. Okay? Wait for it because it will surely come and it will not tarry. And you say, okay, well, we got that word tarry a minute ago. Guess what? Different word in the original. And the word here, tarry, says it means to be late or slack. So he says, even though there might be some questions, even though it might be delayed, carve it a little bit deeper, because when it comes around, it's not going to be late. It's not going to be slack. It's going to be right on time. God's time. The appointed time. Right? The end time. Then it goes to verse 4. It goes to a condition situation here. It says, behold, his soul, which is lifted up, swelled up, presumptuous. Boy, you know those people? Sometimes they are us. Right? Behold, his soul, which is lifted up, is not upright in him. It's not straight. On the inside, it ain't right. That ain't right, right? Something's not right there. And then we hear this, and we've heard this in church a lot of times. It says, soul which is lifted up is not upright in him, but the just shall live by his faith. The just shall live by his faith. Let's just take the core words there. Just, live, faith. Just, live, faith. I like when I read and I run across the word truth, I like to substitute Jesus because he is the truth. When I run across the word faith, I like to substitute the word Jesus because he is the author of our faith. And so it says, just live faith. Righteousness. Who's our righteousness? Righteousness. Live. He's our life. Truth. And that's where it says faith there. That's really the translation is truth or firmness. But the just, the righteous, shall live, source of life, shall live by what? By his truth. By the firmness with which you can stand on it. What do we call that? We call that faith. The just shall live by their faith. They'll live by what they're trusting in, what they're standing on, what they're reading, what's been engraved. It's funny that he wants the revelation written in stone, plainly and clearly. What are you writing? Words. Who's the Word? Jesus. Habakkuk's here talking about all this stuff, and God's testifying and saying, you know what, in the end, what you need to do is engrave it deep in your heart, the truth, so that someone can stand on it and be firm in it and be steadfast in it, because when stuff comes along, that's what you're going to stand on. That's your security, is standing on that. And he tells them, look, I know you may have questions. Carve it a little bit deeper, because it's not going to be late. It's not going to be slack. It's going to be right on time with everything you need. And our problem is we start looking for everything else instead of waiting and carving it a little bit deeper. We start questioning instead of carving. It's okay to question, but it's not okay to just be sitting there trying to nitpick. Right? You ever had somebody like that around you? Drive you nuts. For my job, I run events. I do it all the time. I've done hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. And it's always amazing when somebody walks up and goes, you know what you should do? And I listen, because I mean, you get ideas from people. But a lot of times there are ideas about what I should do. One, I'm already doing. But two, they don't know what they're talking about. And worse yet, they're not willing to do it. Right? What you should do. Yeah. Hey, Courtney, what you should do to fix your car is this, right? Hey, you know, I've got thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars of equipment and a lot of training and a whole bunch of experience. I can probably figure out how to fix the car. Thanks. You know? It's okay to listen. Yeah. Oh, I saw it on YouTube. I Googled it or giggled it or whatever. Yeah. God said, hey, you know what? I have some experience here. Write this down and stand on it. Because that's what's going to work at the end. When it's all said and done. This is going to take care of it. But I'm having to wait for it. We don't like to wait for anything. Unfortunately, we live in a microwave society. Right? And microwaves are indeed fast. Although I will bet you that some of you get impatient with your microwave because you are faster than that now. Right? I had an uncle who's, wasn't exactly my uncle, but kind of uncle by marriage sort of thing. And he's passed away now. But I was visiting him at his house, and he was in Idaho at the time, and he was sitting there in his kitchen, beautiful view, drinking coffee and eating bacon. And he said, I hate microwaves. They're okay for heating up the water if you need to make some tea or something. But if you want a good cup of coffee, you need to brew it. And he goes, and I absolutely cannot stand bacon in a microwave. Because it's not the same. It's limp and it doesn't taste right. And it's not crispy at all. And so he said, then it's just dried out. Yeah. He said, you fry up the bacon, you brew up the coffee, and that's a good way to start your day. There's something to be said for that. You got to wait a little bit. And you might seem like it's running a little behind. But guess what? When it's done frying in the pan and the pot's done perking, the coffee will be just right, and the bacon will be just right. And then you could write that down. Okay? That's right. We need more bacon. That's and sometimes we need more coffee. That's exactly right. So we're looking at this as we go through this. We talked last week about I'm going to stand my watch. We talked about I'm going to be looking forward. I'm going to be prepared for this. And when he said when I'm reproved, when I'm corrected, when I'm put on the right path, and that's when the Lord says, now I'm going to testify, son. Write it down, write it deep, make it plain. It's a word I'm answering for you, but it's not just for you. It's there so other people can see it too. That revelation is for more than just you. It's personal to you, but it's apparent to other people so they can see it. so that they can follow it when they come along. And so that they can stand at that appointed time, that later time, and when the time is cut off, when it might be cut short. And he's talking about perilous times. So I'm going to tell you that today I think we can take what we're studying in Habakkuk and we can apply it absolutely to our today and say that the number one thing we need to be doing is we need to be paying attention to our faith, to our Jesus, right? Because in the situation where all the corruption, people are not able to be true and straight with themselves, and deceit is everywhere, that we're going to live, the righteous are going to live by our faith. We're going to live by what we've got written on the tables of our heart, what we've carved into the tables of our heart. And what is that? It is the revelation of Jesus Christ. That's the revelation that we're going to stand on, is the revelation of Jesus Christ. Everything else is sinking sand. Nothing else matters. And I've told you this before, but when we had this horrible accident in 1992, end of 92, December 28th, 1992. And we were in the hospital with my son. I think Sandy was off with my oldest son. My youngest son was laying there in hospital bed and with his leg in traction and stuff. And the chaplain for the church, or for the hospital, came in to talk to me, and he said, "How you doing?" I'm fine. I'm good. He's like, "Well, could I pray with you?" And I said, "Fine, but I mean, I'm doing great. I'm a minister. I'm fine." And he said, "Do you know the story about the wise man who built his house upon the rock and the foolish man who built his house upon the sand?" And I said, yeah, I know that. And I'm grounded. I'm right there. And he goes, do you know what the important part of that story is?" And I said, "Well, yeah, the wise man built his house upon the rock." And he said, "No, it rained on them both." You got to stand on the rock. You got to have it carved deep. But you got to know something. At the appointed time, it's going to rain anyway. It's not that being a Christian gets you out of the rain. It gives you the rock to stand on. And in these times, in these days, it's going to rain. It rained in Noah's time. And these are the times as in the days of Noah. It's going to rain a lot. What you going to stand on? What you got carved into your heart? Are you ready to run? And I don't mean away. I mean through it. Are you ready to run? Write the vision. Write it deep. And in the right time, God will be on time if you're standing on Him. And that's it for this week.